What's going on, everyone? Tim from Tier Orbital. Today I would like to quickly go over an install commission that I completed on a Princess Low from KR Sabers. So I want to get right into it. I want to talk a little bit about the chassis for this install, and I do want to talk a little bit about the hilt. And of course, as always, we will do a demo and all of that good stuff, right? So this is the first time that I've done a Princess Leia hilt. I've seen the Princess Low from KR Sabers out in the wild. It is a very, very elegant hilt. It's a very beautiful hilt. It's got like a copper rose gold kind of finish on it. There are some really nice oyster shell or abalone inlays in the grip. It's a very classy, very elegant hilt, right? So this is the first time that I have installed one. I've done some variants on the Princess Leia hilt before. I've done some scrap variants on them, installs on them, but I've never done the actual prop hilt from KR Sabers. So I did do a removable chassis for this particular install. Only the pommel and the thin neck section of this hilt unthread, right? So I had to do, essentially I had to mount an internal PCB and do a removable chassis, right? So that's the way that we tackled this particular install. So single button setup, really classy hilt. Let's jump right into it, right? So we're gonna come into Fusion and take a look at this chassis, and then we'll come up top. All right, so here is the chassis that I designed for this hilt. So right off the bat, I know that I wanted to get some abalone on the chassis as well, right? I've done abalone inlays on chassis before, but given that there is already some oyster shell or white abalone on the grip of the hilt, I wanted to get the same on the chassis. So this channel that goes down the each side of the chassis, there's one here and there's one on the other side, there is a white abalone inlay that is in that channel, right? Did some light greebly work along both sides of the chassis. Down at the bottom here, we've got a 28mm speaker from Smugglers Outpost. This is fully enclosed. Kill switch is just below the Proffie board here. And that's it, really. No blinkies or neopixels on this particular chassis. Very simple chassis, okay? Up top, we've got our 6-rail PCB connector, and that's how we make a connection to the upper part of the hilt. So yeah, I wanted to keep this nice and simple. I know we had to go with a removable, so that is what we did. And that's it, nice and simple. So let's come up top, take a look at this hilt. Okay, so this is the KR Sabers Princess Low. Very, very classy looking hilt. Okay, so we've got this like copper rose gold finish. We've got some really, really nice pearl abalone inlays in the grip here. Single button setup. Really, really classy looking hilt. Okay, so let's talk about this chassis. To get at the chassis, you want to unthread your pommel. Here is the chassis. So I've already got a battery in this. But here is the chassis. I did a pass of copper and gold rubnbuff on this particular chassis. Here is our kill switch down here. Here is our 6-rail PCB. Battery trays here. And here are those abalone inlays on both sides of the chassis. No blinkies on this one. While we are here, I do want to talk about something. So I've said this before, but I designed my chassis around 90-degree USB connectors, okay? So in theory, I mean, in practice, you can pull this Proffie board out. It's underneath a lip here. You can slide it out and tilt the Proffie board up if you need to get at the USB. But I prefer using a 90-degree USB connector. I will link this in the description, but this is actually the same USB connector that I designed for, and it just fits perfectly here, right? So that alleviates you from pulling the board out repeatedly. So yeah, I think I've said that, in passing in previous videos, but I've never given an actual, example of what I use. As far as the SD card goes, let's come back here. So as far as the SD card goes, same principle, right? So the SD card can be removed while the Proffie board is in the chassis. I take a pair of tweezers and I pull the SD card out. You can also, again, you can slide the Proffie board out if you want, but in my opinion, personally, I would rather it just to stay where it's at, right? So I just wanted to give a simple example of that. That is my intention with the way that I design chassis, right? So like I said, I'll link this in the description below. This is just a ribbon connector. They do ship with the ribbon separate, and you just have to connect it on each end. Really simple. Right, so now you've got your chassis. Spring side is your negative. Put the battery in the battery tray. So this was already on. Hit that kill switch. So we've got a Smugglers, Outpost, Darkside Elite bass speaker there. Once you get your battery in, one more thing I want to talk about before I forget. So this particular hilt, I'm not sure if all of the KR versions of this hilt are like this, but these flathead screws that hold these spines or these ribs in place, they protrude all the way to the inside of the hilt. I wasn't a huge fan of that because I would either have to do one of two things, right? So design the chassis with 6 notches along the circumference of the whole chassis so it can slide in, or I could have just cut or grinded down the screws. And that's what I did. I did not want to do a weird looking chassis with notches in it. So I did grind down all of these screws so that the chassis can stay circular and it can fit in the hilt anyway, right? So once you get your battery in, put your chassis in the hilt, screw on your pommel. Everything is clocked and timed correctly. So you just need to thread that pommel all of the way on until it stops, and then you're ready to go. Let's come down to the bottom. Really classy looking hilt, very beautiful hilt. It's a great sound. Let's see what else we put on here.
Ancient integration.
So this is a single button Proffie setup. So to scroll through your fonts, you want to long press and release while the hilt is off. If it is pointing up, you will scroll forward in your fonts. And if you point it down, you will scroll back, right? All right, let's put a blade in it. So this is a 1-inch blade holder. One of the things I appreciate about KR's design of this particular hilt, so we do have a thin neck. I mean, technically this is a thin neck hilt, right? Typically with thin necks, you have very, very shallow blade depth. So what KR has done with this blade holder is they've put 3 set screws along the circumference of that blade holder. I appreciate that. So you can tighten them all down and really bite down on that blade. So put your blade in, make sure it's just resting on those PCB pins. I kind of tighten these all a little bit. I tighten them until they stop, just kind of until they're hugging the blade, and then I go back and crank down on them a little bit more, just so that you're screwing them all in at the same distance, right? And that's it. Go back one. I think I've got a Leia font on here.
The General, to me, she's royalty.
What else did we put on here? Let's see.
Ancient integration.
I am no Jedi.
Inquisitorious.
So this is a single button Proffie setup. I am not, full disclosure, I am not as schooled in single button Proffie navigation as I am with the 2-button setup. However, I have set this up with Fett's prop file, so you get all of the same functionality of a double or a 2-button Proffie setup as you do with a single button. So to access like color wheel, if you want to change the color of your blade, you point the blade down and click 4 times, and then you can come back up and pick your color. When you find a color you like, tap power again, and it will lock that in. You can also change the volume as well with single button. So if you point the hilt up, hold down power, and clash the blade,
Volume menu.
you will enter volume.
Maximum volume.
Volume mode, and then
Maximum volume.
you twist the hilt to either increase or decrease the volume, right? And then press power.
Exiting volume menu.
One more. All right, that's it for now. All right. So, anyhow, that's it. That's a quick rundown on the Princess Low from KR Sabers. I've had my eye on this hilt for a long time. It's a very, very classy, elegant-looking hilt. I'm glad that I got a chance to do a chassis install and a chassis design and an install on the hilt. So, to the client, thank you very much for trusting me with your install. If you or the viewers have any questions, please do not be a stranger. And with that being said, may the force be with you always. Thanks for watching, everybody.